Mars and Rahu. Mars and Rahu is a tricky combination because anytime we get Rahu with any planet, it shows a person who hasn't really developed that planet well in past lifetimes. So they're aiming to develop it in this lifetime. And what is Mars? Well, Mars is energy, logic, willpower, our sense of character, our gut instinct, capacity to fight, to take initiative at the right time. And when we get Rahu and Mars together, oftentimes what we find is that the person doesn't really know how to do all those things, doesn't know how to use those qualities well. And so they'll be put in situations where they have to learn to develop it. All right. So Mars can deal with fire, Rahu can deal with toxicity or confusion. This can give a person a lot of bursts of energy, quick bursts of energy. Oftentimes it can make a person somewhat manic at times. Because again, Mars is, I got to get this done, I got to get it done right now. Rahu amplifies anything that it's with. And Rahu is also a very initiatory energy. Because remember, it's the head of the demon that was cut in half. So it's just the head. So things often fall through when Rahu is involved because it doesn't have a body to digest the experiences or to digest the skills that Mars represents. So it gets this strong burst of energy, these great ideas, but then they'll typically fall through because Mars does really great with initiation, with getting things done right now that are immediate. Rahu are our ideas. So Mars Rahu people can often be very good as idea people, not necessarily good with follow through. There's a lot of difficulty with Mars because it can show a person who doesn't know how to logically attend to the affairs of their life. They'll have an idea, a should, a principle, but they haven't really thought it through. So they become very forceful, but not logically. And Mars is meant to be logical. Mars deals with our inner fire, our drive, our capacity to fight. And when Rahu amplifies that, it can make a person angry, and it can make a person antagonistic, and it can make a person explosive for no real reason. So when we think about these Mars-Rahu combinations, there's more difficulty to them than there is positivity. But we have to remember that Rahu is all about developing that planet. So it's difficult because you haven't attended to it. In the same way that, again, if I said, hey, let's learn to sew, and you've never sewn before. Well, it doesn't mean that sewing is innately bad because you can't do it. It means that this is the time to figure out how to sew, or any skill set. So that was just an example. So with Mars and Rahu, it's learning about logic, learning about reason, learning how to manage one's anger, learning how to take initiative and then develop follow-through. Mars and Rahu people often need to work on blood purity, and they need to work on their physical circulation. So that's, again, why exercise is very important for Mars-Rahu people, because they need to circulate their blood to keep their body clean. Mars-Rahu people typically also need to avoid ingesting things that are toxic to them, whether it be smoking or drinking or bad food or inhaling gasoline fumes. Oftentimes you'll get Mars and Saturn, Mars-Rahu combinations with people who are good mechanics. And it's good that they're mechanics, but it's bad in that they're always dealing with toxins. They're inhaling fumes all day long. So if you have these kinds of combinations, you want to be particularly cautious about your blood purity, about the purity of your diet, because this can also lead to skin problems, allergies, inflammation within the body, and things that are hard to pinpoint, because Rahu represents this confusion. Rahu is also a very psychic energy. So if it's not a physical allergy or toxin that's causing problems within a person, oftentimes they'll be sensitive to the psychic environment that's around them. And so they might have an mental explosion because they've tapped into something psychically that they're not even really aware of. So with Mars-Rahu combinations, you also want to be very careful with things like channeling. Actually, I don't personally recommend things like channeling, but especially for Mars-Rahu people or people with Mars-Rahu combinations and conjunctions, because if you don't have good psychic boundaries, you open yourself up to all kinds of psychic problems. And I got to be honest with you, most people who are involved in occult things or psychic things don't have good psychic boundaries. They've never trained to keep themselves strong that way, and they don't have the patience to learn how to do it in the first place. So if you've got the patience to do it, and you've got the proper training to do it, sure, this might be an interesting exploration for you, psychically speaking. But otherwise, I would probably avoid it. With Mars Rahu people, a person often doesn't know how to deal with angry feelings or vindictive feelings. Being angry, being aggressive, it's a normal part of life. Animals do it. It's a natural flow of human consciousness. But the problem with Mars and Rahu is the person will dwell upon the anger or the wrong that occurred to them. And this creates an emotional toxicity as well. So Mars-Rahu combinations have to be very clean, pure, both physically, mentally, emotionally. They have to learn to meditate on things like love and forgiveness. They have to learn to figure out how to be more logical and truly logical, not just because they have this great ideal or this righteousness that they think is the right way, but actually to sit down and figure out, okay, logically speaking, when I'm interacting with other people, how can I let go of these ideals which cause problems within my relationships, and how can I learn to respect other people's ways of life as well? And how can I interact with people and know when is it appropriate to pick a fight, to defend myself, to be aggressive, and when am I just kind of flipping out? And that's the tough part about Mars Rahu. So again, I focused mainly on the difficult things of Mars Rahu because this isn't really typically an easy combination, but it is a combination that's specific to personal growth. So it can become a source of strength for you if you're willing to develop your Mars, if you're willing to work through the confusion of Rahu. Then this can be a very, very good combination because then you will be insightful. You will have learned through trial by fire. You will become wise, and you will know what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. The confusion lifts. So Mars Rahu does typically take a lot of work. It does typically take a lot of time to essentially learn to master one's own consciousness, one's own responses, and also to be respectful to other people. It's very hard for Mars-Rahu combinations to do that. But if they can, then they become a great source of strength, of energy, of clarity, of discernment, of logic even. So Mars-Rahu can be very good, but it does take a lot of work. In the same way that when you get a chunk of iron, that's a chunk of iron. You can do a lot with that chunk of iron, but it's hard work. If you want to make steel, you have to go through a very lengthy process. You have to go through a very intense process to make something into steel out of iron so that you can use it as a tool. Is it worth it? Most certainly. Is it easy? Probably not. But the better you get at it, the easier it becomes. So these are some thoughts on Mars Rahu. If you want to learn more about Mars and Rahu and just Rahu in general, I would highly recommend two things. Number one, at AshevilleVedicAstrology.com, under the downloadable courses section, there is a class on Rahu and Ketu. I believe it's Astrological Principles 3. You can learn a lot about Rahu and Ketu by downloading and studying that class. But if you really want to get into Rahu and Ketu, I would consider looking at the Astrology Apprenticeship course at Asheville Vedic Astrology. So go to AshevilleVedicAstrology.com, go to the Astrology Apprenticeship course tab, so it should be in the top bar, and read about that. There's a lot of legwork one will have to do to really understand Rahu and Ketu, but around year 3 of that apprenticeship program, we will be looking specifically at how to take Rahu and Ketu through the chart, through all the planets, and really dial in what are they doing for an individual and how can a person work with them. So that's more of a long-term goal. But again, if you've got Mars and Rahu, it might be good to start thinking about long-term goals, because Mars and Rahu won't really be innately inspired to do that sort of a thing. So those are just some ideas. Next up, Mars and Ketu.